Number 8. Matthew Joseph Medlin. An Oregon man named Matthew Joseph Medlin has a long history of committing serious and bizarre crimes throughout the Portland area, which eventually led to him spending time in a state mental hospital. He faced numerous charges in 2016 when he allegedly jumped on top of vehicles, licked a passerby, stuck a bloody needle into a piece of fruit, and stole a bottle of liquor from a bar. Authorities had to forcibly sedate Medlin twice to get him under control. This was just one of many arrests over a 20-year span, during which time the serial offender amassed a collection of over a dozen mugshots that showed disturbing changes in his appearance. In his earlier mugshots, 36-year-old Medlin was an attractive, clean-shaven, normal-looking young man. But over time, he completely covered his face in creepy tattoos. In 2013, Medlin was sentenced to prison time for sex abuse, burglary, and assault. Just days before his release the following year, he escaped. This landed him back behind bars, when he could have been freed if he had just been a little more patient. One of Medlin's more recent arrests came in 2020, when he allegedly tried to break into a snack shack at a local railway station. Transit officers chased after him on foot while he ran into a nearby supermarket and hid in a storage area. Because there was only one way in and out of his hiding place, Medlin had no choice but to give himself up to authorities. But he didn't go down without a fight, and police were left with no choice but to tase him when he refused to cooperate with their orders and threatened to shoot them. It appears as though Medlin has stayed out of trouble for the last 2 years, but it's unclear whether he's currently incarcerated. Number 7. Jude Lovechick. About 30 years ago, a serial rapist named Jude Lovechick terrorized parts of Northern Virginia in a string of brutal sexual assaults. He managed to avoid being caught for decades and carried on with life as if he never did anything wrong. After meeting his future wife, Catherine, in 2008, Lovechick confessed to her that he had assaulted around 20 women throughout his lifetime. He told her that the secret was eating him up and asked her to reenact some of the assaults in their bedroom so he could satisfy his sick desires. The couple divorced in 2016, at which point Catherine went to the police and told them that Lovechick had assaulted her. She also revealed the disturbing secrets he had told her about his past crimes and the things she had to do to feed his twisted appetite. An investigation ensued, and in 2018, DNA evidence connected Lovechick with the brutal 1995 assaults of 4 female roommates. In court, the women recalled being forced to do unspeakable things at gunpoint and said that Lovechick told them if they said anything to anyone, he would kill their friends and family. A jury found Lovechick guilty of 17 charges, including abduction, sodomy, robbery, and firearms offenses. And while this is believed to be just one of many horrific crimes that authorities believe the sadistic serial offender committed, it was thankfully enough to put him behind bars for the rest of his life, with a 357-year sentence. Number 6. George Rivas. George Rivas was serving 18 consecutive 15 years to life sentences at a maximum security prison in Texas when he masterminded a plot to escape with 6 fellow inmates in 2000. They put their plan into action at a time when they knew the prison was under less surveillance than normal. The inmates assaulted several civilian workers, corrections officers, and even a few prisoners in their bid for freedom. The elaborate scheme went off without a hitch, and soon enough the Texas 7 were in a getaway car on the open road. Over the next several weeks, the 7 fugitives embarked on a wild crime spree across several states while staying in hotels under fake names. They committed numerous robberies and took things to a disturbing new level at a sporting goods store in Irving, Texas, when they shot police officer Aubrey Wright Hawkins dead at the scene and then ran over his body with their getaway car. Acting on a tip from viewers who phoned in to America's Most Wanted, authorities captured the men in Colorado. Rivas, who was 30 years old at the time, had a criminal history dating back to childhood. He had committed at least a dozen robberies and other offenses and was serving 17 life sentences before the escape. But his decision to participate in the murder of a police officer was a game changer. Knowing he could face the death penalty, Rivas pleaded for his life at trial. Forensic psychiatrist Richard Coons testified that the killer could not be rehabilitated and would definitely continue to reoffend at every given chance. Rivas exhausted all his appeals and was executed by lethal injection in 2014. Number 5. Jacques Cassandre. Back in 1976, a gang of criminals tunneled through sewers in the French city of Nice to access a bank vault and rob what would amount to millions of dollars today. All but one of the thieves got away with the crime, and the money was never found. In 2010, a man named Jacques Cassandre wrote a book claiming to be the mastermind of the heist. He used a pen name, but authorities were quick to identify him as the book's author. During their investigation, the senior citizens' children admitted that their dad had often bragged about the crime. Cassandre had mistakenly assumed that the robbery was too old to be prosecuted in criminal court. But France has no statute of limitations for the crime, and in 2018 the suspect went on trial in the more than 40-year-old case. At first, his lawyers tried to claim that the book was an empty boast, but Cassandre eventually admitted to participating in the elaborate theft. He claimed that he had spent all the money long ago, but the judge had a hard time believing it, considering Cassandre's substantial wealth, despite having come from a modest background. In the years since the heist, he had built up a highly successful real estate empire, but was also a career gangster who routinely broke the law for self-gain. In addition to masterminding the sophisticated bank robbery, Cassandre was involved in drug trafficking. He was convicted of extortion, pimping, and drug trafficking after authorities took down the French Connection drug smuggling network during the 1970s. Cassandre managed to avoid a conviction for the robbery, but was found guilty of several lesser charges. He received a 30-month jail sentence and was ordered to pay a 6-figure fine. Number 4. John Allen Brooks. In 2008, authorities intercepted a damaged yacht named Dances with Waves off the Irish coast. It had come all the way from Venezuela and was en route to Liverpool, England, when it capsized during a severe storm. The boat belonged to a man in his late 50s named John Allen Brooks, but was being sailed by 3 crew members that Brooks had hired to transport over 1.6 tons 1.5 metric tons of cocaine into the UK. In the second biggest drug seizure ever made by Irish authorities, the illicit cargo was seized and the yacht's crew was taken into custody. Law enforcement caught up with Brooks during a 2011 trip to England from his home in Spain and arrested him for suspected drug trafficking. By then, he had a lengthy rap sheet dating back roughly 30 years, consisting mostly of offenses related to drugs and drug trafficking. Prosecutors described him as a career smuggler who moved huge amounts of illicit substances. He had been arrested in numerous countries, had served a 5-year prison sentence in Spain, and even escaped from a prison in Morocco in 2000. Brooks was found guilty of conspiracy to import a Class A drug and received a 28-year prison sentence. The 3 crew members who were caught moving the cocaine were each sentenced to 10 years. Number 3. Michael Moller. A crooked Rhode Island businessman named Michael Moller took advantage of government-funded assistance that was meant to help struggling businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic by submitting 11 fake applications to a federal paycheck protection program for companies that don't exist. He used forged tax documents to authenticate his claims and received nearly $700,000 in ill-gotten funds. Prosecutors later claimed that Moller gambled most of the money away at casinos in New Hampshire and Las Vegas. He also bought a Camaro and renovated his house. By the time the feds caught up with him, only $126,430 was left in his bank account. The scam wasn't entirely surprising to prosecutors, who described Moller as a career criminal who was incapable of stopping himself from committing fraud. By the time he came under scrutiny for the paycheck relief scam, the 42-year-old had already had 14 prior convictions under his belt and had spent most of his adult life in and out of prison. He's committed tax fraud, bank robberies, and other crimes revolving around taking money that wasn't his. While awaiting trial from behind bars, Moller convinced two fellow inmates that he knew a good lawyer and could help with their criminal and immigration cases. He convinced them to fork over $17,000, which Moller and his girlfriend squandered on marijuana, gambling, and jailhouse commissary. He pleaded guilty to fraud in the paycheck relief case and is currently serving a 7-year sentence. Number 2. Ian Carr. 27-year-old Ian Carr was driving a stolen vehicle in Northumberland, England on New Year's Eve 2002 when he crashed into a hatchback, killing a 6-year-old girl and critically injuring her 18-month-old baby sister. Police charged him with numerous crimes, including driving while disqualified, failing to stop at the scene of an accident, taking a vehicle without consent, and causing death by dangerous driving. Just months before the deadly collision, Carr had been released from prison after serving time for burglary. It came to light during his trial that he had 89 previous convictions, and that this wasn't the first time his reckless driving had killed someone. When he was 15 years old, the career criminal had taken another person's life from behind the wheel, and at some point he was banned from driving for life in Scotland. Carr appeared emotionless throughout the proceedings and offered no apology to his victims. He was found guilty on 6 counts, but was not convicted of murder because the prosecution lacked sufficient evidence to prove that he meant to kill someone. A judge sentenced a menacing motorist to 9.5 years behind bars, but for some, the sentence wasn't long enough. In an emotional victim impact statement, the father of the kids who were hurt and killed, Stephen Sawyer, said that he believes Carr would re-offend if given the chance. He also said that he felt the punishment should have been a life for a life. After the trial, Northumbria Police Inspector Paul Gilroy told The Guardian that the only way Carr would stop being a menace to the public was if and when he received a custodial sentence, which is when it's deemed necessary to jail someone to protect the public. Carr's extensive record generated discussion among lawmakers about whether the UK needs to heighten its restrictions on repeat offenders. His sentence ended long ago, but it's entirely possible that he's been in more trouble since then, or that his criminal tendencies have landed him back behind bars. Number 1. Tashalynn Schleicher. One day in April 2018, officers in Riverside, Illinois, responded to a call about someone passed out in their vehicle outside a local gas station. When the cops arrived, they found 41-year-old Tashalynn Schleicher behind the wheel. It was instantly clear, based on the open bottle of Crown Royal in the front seat and her glassy, bloodshot eyes, that she was severely intoxicated. She had also accidentally tried to fill her gas tank with kerosene instead of gasoline and had no idea how she ended up in Illinois. Police later said in a news release that Schleicher was barefoot and that her clothes were literally falling off when she stepped outside her car. After insisting that she had her 11 kids with her and couldn't find them, she refused a sobriety test and was taken into custody. The Minnesota resident was charged with 2 counts of felony aggravated drunken driving, 2 counts of misdemeanor drunk driving, driving without vehicle insurance, and driving with a license that was revoked due to drunk driving. In case you haven't caught up, Schleicher has received numerous DUIs in the past, so many that after seeing her history, Riverside's police chief described her as one of the nation's worst DUI offenders. By then, her rap sheet consisted of 6 DUI charges in 6 states, including Kentucky, Wisconsin, Indiana, California, Oregon, and Minnesota. At the time, she was also wanted on warrants in Nebraska, Idaho, and Oregon. Schleicher received her first drunk driving charge in 2007, and her life seems to have only gone downhill from there. It's true that she has 11 kids, but most were taken away due to her various DUI arrests. She regained custody of them in 2017, but the reunion was short-lived because it was only a matter of time before she got another DUI. At one point, Schleicher was caught driving drunk while breastfeeding her baby. Despite her undeniable history of dangerous behavior, she was only sentenced to probation for her most recent offense. Thanks for watching. Would you rather find out that your next-door neighbor was heavily involved in organized crime, or find out that you were being investigated because of your uncanny resemblance to a notorious serial bank robber? Let us know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe.